Hey guys! In today's video, I'm going to be flipping through my notes from AP US History and sharing some of my advice for this class, which can also apply to pretty much any other history or AP history subject. I'm going to start off with some general advice for the entire subject, and then some more specific tips for certain components of the AP test. My first tip would be to actually read your textbook. There are a lot of great review videos out there that will help you summarize the information and point out what's the most important. Shout out to Adam Norris because I watched a ton of his videos. Although these videos are great, you can't just rely on them for all of your information. You actually do need to read your textbook to get all of the details. This class is very detail focused, so make sure you have those squared away in your memory. Besides your textbook, I also recommend reading other books, watching documentaries, watching TV shows, etc. that are outside of just what's assigned for class, so you can get a lot more information and different perspectives about all of the topics that are covered in US history. There is a lot to know for this subject, so try to expose yourself to as much information as you can. Of course, it is pretty much impossible to memorize everything you come across, so be sure to identify what is the most important and focus on remembering all of that information ahead of everything else. One way to get this information is to refer to the key concept outline that's published by the College Board. I recommend you get familiar with any event, person, important key term, or anything like that that's explicitly mentioned by the key concepts, and for each of the different processes or historical trends that are mentioned, make sure you know at least one or two examples from each concept pretty well so that you can bring them up in short answer or essay questions. After you've done your sufficient memorization of information, the best way to do well is to practice how to actually apply that knowledge by doing a ton of practice questions. College Board publishes a lot of their past free response and short answer questions. Those prompts and their scoring guidelines are available for free. Besides that, the multiple choice on the College Board is kind of lacking, so I recommend albert.io instead. It costs money, but in my opinion, it's pretty worth it. Speaking of multiple choice, here are some of my tips specifically about doing well on multiple choice questions. My first general rule of thumb is to avoid the absolute statements, like this never happens or this always is true, because almost always there will be an exception. Life is weird, history is just like people, things are weird, and there are almost never an absolute rule that every event and happening thing will follow. That's a weird explanation, but just basically all of those absolute answers tend to be wrong because there's at least one exception. Also, I recommend you read all of the answer choices before you pick, because it's not always about choosing an answer that's simply correct. You have to choose the best answer. Also, there's almost always two answers that are very clearly wrong, so just cross those out. Even if you can't be sure which of the other two are the correct or best answer, it really improves your chances of guessing because it increases your chances from 25% to 50%. Speaking of guessing, if you don't know, you might as well guess because there is no penalty for a wrong answer. So the more you can narrow it down, the better. And then once you've eliminated as many wrong choices as you can determine are wrong, just take the guess. Now let's move on to the writing questions, which are the LEQ, the DBQ, and the short answer questions. My quote-unquote strategy for this was a semi-organized brain dump. Basically, what I did was I would write pretty much everything I knew that was related to the topic and relevant to my argument. There's a benefit to saying as much as you can that you know is true and that is relevant, because you can't be absolutely sure what exactly the graders are looking for in the answer, but if you say a lot, the odds of hitting that exact point are higher. But at the same time, don't just spew random stuff. Make sure it's actually related to the question, related to the prompt, related to your argument, because random garbage is just going to make the graders irritated at you, and you do not want that either. So one way to ensure that it's relevant is to make sure you have a clear claim or thesis for each short answer or essay. Then you just need to include historical facts and analysis to support your thesis with sufficient evidence. Lastly, make sure you pace yourself really well for the writing. For example, for a 40-minute LEQ, my pacing strategy was roughly 5 minutes to read the prompt and write myself a little outline with bullet points about the different main claims I had underneath my main argument and the evidence that would support each claim. Then I spent about 7 minutes on each paragraph, the intro, conclusion, and each body paragraph. And that's everything for this video. I hope you found my tips helpful, and if you're currently taking this class, good luck. I upload new videos every Monday, and I post photos of my notes, which, if you scroll back far enough, will include apush notes on my Instagram, which is @studyquill. See you next time!